Let's talk about overcoming fear. Let's look at really what we're afraid of, what we're fearful of. Really, we're afraid of something that's in the future, right? Something that's going to happen, could happen. What if it happens? Really? Right? That's really what we're afraid of. We're not really afraid of something that's happened in the past. It's already happened. It's over. But we're always afraid of what could happen in the future. What if this happens, right? Something at a later point in time, right? But what are we actually saying? We're afraid of something that doesn't exist yet. That's what we're saying. Because the future, right? It hasn't come. It doesn't exist. The future is unborn. And the past is dead. Right? The present moment is fully alive. So here we are in the present moment, thinking about the future, thinking about the worst case scenario that could happen. What if the worst case scenario happens, right? So that's really just thoughts that are projecting into the future, basically creating a dream. All that thinking is like dreaming. We're afraid of things that don't even exist. If I'm afraid of something that doesn't exist, what does that say? Right? Is that fear even real? It feels real. It feels real. And the more I start thinking and projecting, right? Thinking is projecting. The more I'm creating with my imagination, imagining this worst case scenario, imagining something bad's going to happen, imagining a disaster. This fear grows and grows and grows. I'm overwhelmed by the fear. And if you're asking, how do I overcome this fear? Right? I want to give you the fastest way to take yourself out of that fear, to just make that fear disappear. Make that fear disappear. Rhymes. So the fastest way is when you're feeling that fear, now that you know that the only fear that you're feeling is the fear of your own imagination. And imagination is something that we are creating, typically about the future. Imagination, we're thinking about something that doesn't exist, because what exists is here and now. This present moment exists. But for me to start imagining that I'm on a beach in Hawaii, that doesn't really exist. That's a dream. For me to be imagining being on an airplane and the airplane's crashing and it's going to go down, that doesn't exist. Right? But the fear feels so real, just like in our dreams at night. So what's the fastest way? Well, the fastest way to overcome that fear, the fastest way to make that fear disappear is to be present. Because in the present moment, there's no fear. Absolutely no fear. Now, how can I just snap out of my imagination and be present? Because when you're present, you're not imagining. It's when you're absent that you're imagining. And most people aren't present, meaning they're absent. They're not present to reality. They're absent to reality. And if you're absent to reality, that's also saying you're not present to what's real. And if you're not present to what's real, then you're present to what's unreal. And it's that dream that's unreal. Just like when you wake up from a dream at night and you go, oh, thank God that wasn't real. Right? So how can we make that fear disappear and snap back to reality? The fastest way is with your breath. Because we can't breathe in the past and we can't breathe in the future. We can only breathe in this present moment. The breath anchors you to this present moment. It's what I call conscious breathing, being conscious of the breath, being fully aware of the breath, the entire breathing process, the in, the pause, the out, the pause, the in. And you're watching, as awareness, you're watching that breath all the way, feeling the sensations, the tip of the nostril, feeling the airflow through the nostrils, feeling it come down, passing the chest, filling the belly, expanding the rib cage, expanding the chest, and out. Paying attention to those spaces of stillness in between the breath, the in and out breath. And by doing that, just even 3 to 5 breaths, you'll notice that while you're conscious of the breath, there's no fear. There's no fear because there's no thought. When you're fully conscious to that breath, you're not thinking. Right? And you can't experience that fear of the dream. You can't dream without thought. And that's where all the fear is happening, is when we're dreaming. Right? Afraid of so much. There's this worry, there's anxiety, all this stress, all this fear, right? Kind of bundle up all those thoughts and just say we're overwhelmed by fear. What I'm saying is we can snap back to reality by when we're in those states. Just be aware, feeling it, feeling overwhelmed, right? Your heart's racing, your blood pressure's through the roof, right? You're antsy, you're stressed, your muscles are tight, you're contracted, right? Panic, terror, right? I'm saying is if we just breathing. And you can try it right now. Like I said, it's not something to believe in. Try it right now. Let's try it. Just close your eyes. And we're going to breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. Breathing in. Breathing out. 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 Good. And as you're noticing, your heart rate slows, your blood pressure comes down, you feel more relaxed, you feel more open, right? There's no fear. There's no fear when you're breathing, right? So that's, like I said, that's the fastest way to make that fear disappear. It's just being present, coming back to the present moment, realizing that if you're not in this present moment, then where are you? Lost in imagination, lost in the future. Because like I said, as most of the fear that we experience, we're experiencing fear about something in the future, something at a later point in time. Not here, not now. Right? If you just sit right in that breath, was there any problems while you were breathing? Was there a problem whatsoever? Right now, is there any problem? Just close your eyes. Is there any problem? No problem. There's only problems in the future when you're thinking about problems, right? So all problems are imagined, right? Because without that imagination, there's not really any problems. There's not really any problems. Without that imagination, there's not really much of the fear that you're experiencing most of your life. So with that simple practice, we just practice right there 5 breaths, 3 to 5 breaths, fully conscious, feeling the air, following the path of that air. While all of your attention is on the breath, your attention can't drift off and start imagining problems to be afraid of. And that's what you're doing with that breath, is you're just bringing that attention back to the present moment, saying, come on back to this present moment where there's no fear and no problems, and just chill, just relax, just enjoy this moment, right? You see, it's a lot of times when we don't want to hear this, but we're so addicted to the fear. We're so addicted to the fear, right? We're programmed to be fearful. Look at the news, right? What is it, like 9 out of 10 stories are just promoting fear, right? It's a lot of this program fear then makes us addicted to the fear, where I just showed you, if you weren't experiencing any fear, which is very unlikely, I'd say it's impossible to experience fear while being fully conscious of your breath. And don't believe me, experience it. It's impossible. Because actually, if you're fully conscious to your breath, you can't even think. Thinking just drops. When you're fully conscious of the breath, you don't even have the idea of who you are. There's no you as a separate self that's breathing. When you're fully conscious of the breath, there's just the breath. There's no one to be afraid. That's why it's so powerful. That's why it works so well. That's why I said, make the fear disappear by just breathing. But if we don't want to breathe, if we experience how powerful it is, this technique, this practice, and we don't want to do that, then you can start seeing it's like we don't want to quit smoking. We don't want to quit drinking. We don't want to quit our addiction. That's the ego mind. It's the mind that's getting some sort of juice out of the fear. It likes experiencing that. We complain about the fear, but we also like experiencing it. So it's kind of like this tug of war, right? But it's only when you're so tired, exhausted, feel how destructive living in fear is. Because really, when we're living in fear, we're not really living. We're not really living when you start looking at it. Because what is that fear doing? That fear is paralyzing us because we can't really take action in the future. Can you take an action in the future? Try it. I'll wait. You can't. We can only take action in the present moment. And a lot of us feel stuck in life because we're really stuck in the dream. We're stuck in our imagination. We're stuck in our memory. And when we're both in our memory or in our imagination, we can't actually take action. Taking action happens only in the present moment. So that's why it feels like, what do people say? I'm stuck in fear. Well, how you get unstuck is by coming back to the present moment. And the best way to come back to the present moment that doesn't need any sort of apps or gadgets or bells and whistles and all this is just your breath. You're always breathing. You're always breathing. But are you conscious of that breath? When you become more conscious of the breath, you instantly become more present. And with something simple like 3 to 5 breaths, and you can continue it once you start feeling good and you start enjoying, especially when you start becoming aware of that stillness, that silence in between the breaths. It's peace. It's peace. So you start valuing this peace over the fear. I had 2 choices. Why would I be living in fear when I could be living in peace? I'll choose peace. I'm going to come back to the present moment, right? When that decision is clear, then you start choosing, again, just to have that practice. And you can practice that. Doesn't need to be just when you're stuck in fear. Practicing that conscious breathing practice every day helps prevent you from getting lost because you're more grounded in the present moment. You're more in the here and now. Just like you've trained yourself to be imagining all the time, well, then train yourself to be present. Fastest way is with your breath. You don't need anything. So there's no excuses. There's no like, I'll get to that later when I have the resources and supplies. Yeah, when I have time, then I'll start breathing. That's what usually people say. It's kind of a busy day right now. Maybe later when I have time, then I'll start breathing. You're already breathing. You're already breathing, right? So it's very powerful. And it's completely up to you whether you want that power. Whether you want that power to be present. Because presence is the power.